Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. We are reading the Socrates and Jesus book, which is a banger. Last time we reviewed where we were up to, which includes a history of the various different interpretations of the apparent teachings and ministry or works of Jesus, from three big ones. Paul, which rejects everything Jesus has said to make up a whole list of things. Jesus was the only Son of God. You have to believe him. The world will end in his lifetime. And if you believe in not Jesus, but Paul, then you'll go to heaven. And he started the church. So, by the way, all of those things that we've read in the book, let's bring it up. Turning on my fan. There we go. We believe that come from the official name for this, by the way, is the Kerygma. Kergyma. I think Kerygma. How do you pronounce it? It is pronounced How is Kerygma pronounced? K-E-R-Y, Kerygma. Kerig like pig ma. Kerygma. The Kerygma is a series of fundamental principles that, whoa, is it weird? That we can recognize as the fundamental tenets of what it means to be a Christian, and they are from the writings of Paul. Paul was a guy who rejected everything Jesus said to make up his own way of thinking based on belief, which is significant because what we're learning from the book is our purpose in life is to move from belief-based cognition to understanding, because belief is the cause of human suffering collectively, and with, in particular, religion, which is the cause and justification for the rejection of understanding, mind and self, causing a state of functioning where you are fundamentally in conflict within and functioning in a way that creates conflict without. The root analogy is from Abraham for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And individually, belief is the cause of problems because so too do we carry a false belief about ourselves and reality that limits our development into understanding. 3, knowing the nature of reality as the highest experience of mind, knowledge. 2, and using the two together, which we would call wisdom, knowing and understanding, to go beyond that to find the root source of everything, the self. Know thyself. If your system, as we read, doesn't have know thyself, then your system lacks meaning. And so belief. So Paul, so what we've also got on the table is Mark. The story that we have of Jesus, his life and stuff, is from Mark, which presents Jesus as a tragic or a pathetic hero character, following all of the stages of the tragic hero, having a tragic flaw that he doesn't address, but he should, causing his tragic demise. Except at the end of a tragic story, he recognizes that his way of being has been the cause of his problems. He has his kind of catharsis and realizes that it was his fault all the way along. Jesus does not have that and says, God, you have forsaken me. So it's formally a pathetic hero's tale, warning us the dangers of having that brilliant light experience, which Jesus does have, without understanding it and using it to justify your false beliefs, as Jesus does in the story. I am the son of David, the new king of the Jews and of Israel, etc. Israel, king of Israel, is that it? King of the Jews? treason. So, belief is the cause of problems. And Paul says, I don't care, I want to be the one in charge, put himself above Jesus, and created the church. Now, we also have Mark, who saw this, and the story that we have about Jesus' life is a denial of the denier, a denier of Paul. And we also have on the table the Gnostic Gospels found in the 60s in Egypt, all the other Gospels that were burnt, well, a whole bunch of other stories about Jesus that were burnt by the church. What? You mean that system of oppression and belief to enslave and justify terrible atrocities, causing the pages of human history to be soaked in blood? You mean they lied and they burnt books? Yes, of course they did. In fact, the early Bibles you would be murdered for if you dared to read and think for yourself. So, really, really disgusting, fucking terrible human beings we are when we prevent understanding, the use of our own mind to know the mind, and the life of ourself to know the self. That makes us fucking terrible, disgusting human beings. Why would we stop understanding mind and self if it's literally the purpose of every living being and it helps everyone, if it's a win-win?
It's a win-win.
Well, because you can manipulate people through belief. Understanding is universal, understanding benefits, but belief doesn't. You can have racist belief, you can have sexist belief. That's the nature of religion. That's why our culture is so terrible at the moment. Now, we also have fascistic movements like MAGA, who also try and convince people to act against their own interests and steal money from everyone for the billionaires and pollute the environment and murder children and stage all these terrible things that justify murder and genocide just so they can have all more money and land and wealth, etc. Really disgusting, terrible crap, but they manipulate religious believers because they have to lie and say, hey, just believe me, bro. Just have hope. Just have hope that maybe things will be better. Now, any sensible person would not get on a plane if your pilot says just have hope or faith. Or if your surgeon said, hey, I don't know anything about medicine, but just have hope and faith. We would never, ever allow that unless we've been trained from a young age in religious belief. That's why the MAGA movement uses Christians and why the Zionistic genocide of the Palestinians uses Jewish believers. It's all the same game. It's very, very simple. Belief equals bad, understanding equals good. It's just that simple. But we all have our own individual false beliefs about ourselves and reality that makes us susceptible to accepting similar tyrants or similar religious indoctrination. If it's similar enough to our own personal, what's the word? Pathologos. Fundamental false belief we carry in our soul about the nature of ourselves and reality that causes our individual problems and blocks in our relationships. So, we do have those Gnostic Gospels, and they present a story of Jesus talking about understanding, talking about the kingdom of heaven being heaven being a state of mind, and the kingdom of God being something akin to the self. So, and of course he did because he grew up around Hellenic culture as well. So it's fascinating that you can see in the story of Mark the conflict between the Hellenic culture of understanding and the Jewish culture of belief. So played out very much so in that, representing fantastically, if we learnt to read it properly, the nature of man's problems. We are ourselves doing our best to overcome our false beliefs that we are identified with and fiercely loyal to, that keeps us as caveman zombie savages. And if we can overcome them through philosophical midwifery, is the skill of uncovering and removing false beliefs. Dream analysis has to be done alongside to get guidance into how specifically to do that completely. Then we can free ourselves from our own injustice towards ourselves and others. And we can use that freedom to then go on to find the truth about those things we have false beliefs about, the truth about understanding instead of belief, the truth about mind and reality instead of imitation of cruelty as an idea of what it means to be wise or knowing, and the truth about self instead of the false image and mask that tells us that we are inadequate, not good enough, that we identify with, that causes the blocks that we have in our lives. So, belief to understanding, it's just that simple. And we can represent that historically. The Jews and the Hellenics. We can represent it with people, Jesus and Socrates. And it's the fundamental conflict that we are here to face as all human beings, therefore the meaning of life. Not for one of us, for all of us. And it's our purpose, or the real word is destiny, our fundamental purpose and cause for our existence that applies to everyone. To know the self through the movement from belief, out of belief, or the purification of belief, and the development of understanding to prepare ourselves to reach mind, know mind, integrate it as the model of justice and beauty, and use our understanding to inquire about the fundamental source of even knowledge or even that highest experience, which is the self. To know ourselves. We're here to know ourselves, folks. That's it. Oh, but not just know ourselves, show ourselves. So in other words, in going through that process, we also learn an art, a skill or an art because it benefits our subjects. That means that in this process of developing ignorance, having been born as a human being, and learning the skill needed to get out of it, we also end up back to our source, back to where we started, the first and final cause, ourselves, with an art of understanding in our back pocket. That art is the dialectic. It's the art used to benefit human souls and cultures. The dialectic. It's the same thing. It's the same skill or art applied to unpacking the meaning from dreams, discovering your false beliefs that cause your problems, and applying it to the truth to reach those higher stages of self and being, and finally sharing it, because it's not a one-person quest, it's not a solo quest, it's for everyone. And if we want to practice the art of dialecticians, well, we need some people to talk to. And hey, if we want to save our species, then it's worth sharing the dialectic with everyone, so we don't go down the road of division and hate caused by debate. Debate gets people to be more entrenched in their false beliefs and ignorance that they came in with because they've had to defend it. And people who want to defend what they already think is true are not going to learn anything. They are just going to become more attached to that which they have to defend. And of course, to do that requires you to misuse language and reason itself. So those are the right-wingers who have their propaganda networks like Fox News and Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and Crowder, all these people who abuse language itself to justify their own beliefs. Now, we all are in that game to some degree, some more than others, of course. Some are more willing to murder Palestinians than others, of course. Some are more willing to keep children in poverty than others, of course. Some are more willing to kill non-believers of Christianity than others, of course. And some are actually wonderful people out there doing their best to champion understanding itself, because understanding is what's needed to unite everyone, because understanding is universal. While beliefs are always divided, even within your own group, you're different from other Mormons, so you will never ever come together. You will never ever have peace and unity if you are bound by belief. In principle, that's just the definition of that cognitive function. But understanding is available to everyone. Anyone can understand how to fly a plane. Anyone can understand that 2 and 2 is 4. Therefore, understanding is the cognitive faculty through which we can unite our human species and unite our souls. So that's the game. And there are people out there who are genuinely caring for their loved ones and humanity, and are doing their best to share a love of understanding. And that's what we're doing here. We're understanding what understanding is. And it's called philodianoia, a love of understanding. That's the new subject. That's the new way of being that human beings need to develop if we want to save our species, put an end to all this terrible torture and violence and bloodshed, and inequality. If we actually want to make change to the world, we need to develop this new way of being called philodianoia, love of understanding. The art involved is the dialectic, as we've just said, and the fundamental paradigm from which all understanding and reasoning is based is the logos. So those are the three keywords. Dianoia, understanding, philodianoia as the subject, dialectic as the skill or use, the opposite of debate. The art of dialectic is what we're here to master. The paradigm itself is the logos, and the functioning of ourselves to turn about and discover and master those things is ousia. It's also the eye of the soul, that is the capacity of mind to know itself as knowledge. So one of the big questions is, if that's knowledge, or the second state of being, what would you call knowing the self if it's beyond even ousia? Or what kind of special ousia is it that allows us to turn around and recognize the self, if pure ousia is knowledge? That's a big puzzle. Understanding is a kind of ousia, because we're turning about upon our subject to reflect on it. Now, dianoia is understanding being, so we are turning about in time to make sense of that which we can experience eternally. So that's a kind of ousia in time. Experienced all at once or out of time is ousia of knowing. That's 3 and 2, understanding and mind. That particular study is called metaphysics. The use of understanding to know knowledge or mind or being. And as we go through that process, we can personify all of the principles and elements that we have been understanding with the gods. That's theology. Gods are not literal. There isn't really a sky daddy shaking his finger at you if you don't say your prayers before you eat your vegetables. That's bullshit Pauline Judaism and Abrahamic nonsense used to keep people afraid and stupid. The gods are personifications of principles that are understandable and verifiable in direct experience of knowledge. You don't have to believe anyone if you understand, and you definitely don't have to believe anyone if you can experience it for yourself. So anyone who says, hey, belief is good or faith is good, is fucking with you or grifting you and is actively hurting you whether they know it or not. No mechanical engineer would say to an apprentice, when you ask them, can I know how to fix an engine? No, you can't know for yourself. Just have faith, bro. That would never, ever happen. Same with medicine, same with anything. Just believe me how to ride a bike. No, I want to understand it and experience it. No, you don't. That's the devil. So that's the kind of, when you say it out loud with metaphor, you can see how stupid it is and how terrible belief is as a way of teaching or educating. It's not education or teaching. That's the movement into understanding. Belief is a stagnant analogy based on imitation used to oppress and enslave. That's what keeps our species as savages. Now, the particular elements that have to be believed for you to be a modern Christian is called the kerygma. And they all come from Paul's letters. So the Romans, the Corinthians, these are all Paul's letters to these people expressing his own personal bullshit beliefs that he has never addressed and removed because he doesn't do midwifery and he doesn't do dream analysis. He's just a slave to his ignorance. And as the course of history happened to go, the particular ignorance and injustice of Paul becomes sanctified, pedestalized, put up on a pedestal, and that becomes modern Christianity. Pauline Judaism is modern Christianity. And the kerygma are these elements that in the book, Jesus himself says, I didn't say any of this, this comes from Paul. Let's see if you can recognize them. That Jesus was the only Son of God, not said by Jesus ever. Only Paul and John, who tries to validate Paul. He was a pre-existing divine being. He died on the cross. None of the Gnostic Gospels that were buried by the church and rediscovered in the 60s, the Gnostic Gospels mention any of that. He made atonement for the sins of mankind. Of course not. Resurrection. The resurrection isn't even in the modern Gospels. we recognize that they were added 200 years later to the story of Mark to save Paul by the church. Otherwise, we'd have to think for ourselves and realize, holy shit, the story of Jesus is a tragic tale which ends in failure. But if he magicked his way up to his home planet, like that episode of Simpsons where the writers tried to get rid of Poochie, and Poochie magicked his way up to his home planet, and there's a picture of Poochie, a still frame animation, and magicked his way up into the sky. Not there. And of course it's not there. What the hell? Of course human beings don't magic their body up into the sky. That makes no sense if you think about it. For anyone not indoctrinated into this craziness from childhood. That's why you don't learn religion, you grow up in religion. That's why it's not a coincidence that Jewish parents have Jewish babies, and Christian babies have Christian parents, and Mormon babies have Mormon parents. That's not a weird coincidence, it's indoctrination. In principle, by definition. And that's easy to see if you have any integrity, because even though you love your personal beliefs and religious beliefs about God, look to any other single religion out there. You think they're crazy, and you also recognize they don't think they're crazy, and you also recognize a large number of them are willing to kill you and your family because that's how certain they are of their crazy bullshit beliefs. Integrity and maturity is realizing, holy crap, I'm a human too. Maybe I'm in the same boat. Okay, so the rapture. The resurrection, he says, marks the beginning of a cosmic catastrophe, ending with the saved believers ascending into heaven like Poochie up to his home planet, and all the rest of life being destroyed. Hooray! Makes absolute no sense at all, completely crazy and bullshit. Jesus didn't say any of it. This is all the ramblings of a guy who murdered Christians for fun named Paul. Modern Christianity. This is the principles that they all think is said by Jesus. This is the difficulty of not teaching people how to read. Death is abolished. If after this rapture in Armageddon, the demonic forces lose their power, death is abolished. His resurrection is when Jesus magicked his way out of his coffin, said to place him at the right hand of God, making him Lord and King. Yes, that's what we think would be a just world. He will return on the clouds of heaven to redeem the saved and bring final judgment of man. From this time on, there will be no more suffering, sin, or death. Paul believed he would be present to experience this final end, so it was supposed to happen in around 50 AD. He announced that those who join his church and follow his rituals of baptism and partake in the Eucharist, that's the wafers, will gain salvation after the resurrection. The saved become sons of God and gain eternal life in heaven. This was a carefully crafted message, endlessly repeated, and it lulls to sleep the souls of his followers, who can then forget what was said by Jesus himself and anyone else. None of the sayings came from Jesus' own teachings. Paul also said he was commissioned by God to do this, and puts him as an equal or surpassing even Jesus himself. He's an apostle at God's call, and he does not report anything of what Jesus said, and he freely added what Jesus never said. He built a system of churches departing from Jesus' teachings. And Socrates asks, did not those who followed Paul realize he distorted Jesus' teachings? And we didn't answer that question. My goal was not to establish a church, but provide a way to the kingdom of God, which was a state of mind, apparently. Paul ignored him. Okay, so, and this is worth talking about because at the time of recording, indoctrinated into belief American evangelists think that this will happen on Wednesday, literally. Sometimes people say, oh no, he wasn't a terrible murderer because he had a conversion experience, but Paul didn't have a major conversion experience. Luke added several parts to Paul's account of his own experience that he himself didn't say any of it. What did Luke add? There are 4 accounts of that experience. The most divergent is Paul's, and his conversion experience is the most modest. We didn't really get into that because, why would we? Who gives a shit? Did he magic away his beliefs and his ignorance and his murderous intent? Of course not. That's not how you solve human problems. Okay. But there was another thing where it says, how come they keep moving the goalposts? Mark talks about understanding. Paul's idea of love is an act of charity, what we see from the fascists and racists today. That yes, don't have love for your fellow man. That's kind of an act of charity. And human sacrifice is a good thing as well, apparently. Even though there's no learning by killing another person for your mistakes. So how can you be benefited if you have not understood why you committed those problems or sins in the first place? But Jesus said, well, actually, forgiveness is good because there goes, you can just lift your guilt away. And then, well, hang on a second, you haven't learned anything. You need to find the origin of your problems, of course. Other than saying, oh, I magicked your problems away. So you don't feel bad about anything you did, and you're not going to change, of course. So this is all in the book. Isn't this book fantastic? Okay, and then we talked about a different idea of love, and we went through that last time. Love and logos, or reason and love, and that's true midwifery. That's true learning, and that is also represented in the symposium. Each level of love can match a cognitive function of ignorance, right opinion, understanding, and knowledge or wisdom. So we've been talking a lot about those stages of development that we go through as we read, but also can happen in a loving relationship, provided you have love and logos. But there was changing the date or moving the date. I can't remember what the specific quote was, but there was something early on about how believers can't even disprove their own belief, because once the rapture doesn't come in 500 AD, they'll say, oh no, actually it's supposed to be 100 AD, 200 AD, 2000 AD, 2020, and this Wednesday is the next date. But he talked about this in the text as well. Fiercely loyal to our own beliefs, that's human problems. There are 9 hypotheses in Plato's Parmenides, which is the greatest book never read. Okay. Paul thought he would be here to experience this rapture. Okay, can't find it. But yeah, the inability to disprove with evidence and reason, even if it's stark, is one of the problems of belief. So you can tell stories to sanctify belief, to oppress people and cause the problems in individual lives and in our society. Or you can use the gods as personifications of the metaphysical principles that you can understand yourself through reading and verify through the experience of knowledge. The two together giving you wisdom. Now, to do that, you also have to be paying attention to your dreams as you go. And it's the same exercise of the dialectic that we apply to our problems and to our reading. apply to our dreams. But here he says, so the Prometheus personifies a remarkable foresight that goes beyond mere thinking. He is far-seeing and knows the future. Far-seeing knows the future as it knows the present. On a personal level, this kind of knowing even knows that it will only do what is providentially the best. This is the idea of benefit or providence. That fan's really big. I think I might move it back a little bit. On a general level, it is the awareness that there is a profound structure of justice, capital J, in place. Because that is what it means to say our cosmos is providentially intelligible. So it's good that we can know it, and it is knowable. Providentially intelligible. Okay, so the question is, why is he invoking the name of Prometheus when we were talking about the kind of knowledge and providential functioning that dreams must have to be able to guide us in this way? So why Prometheus? So let's go have a look at the other times he's mentioned Prometheus already. Okay, I just had to move my fan back a wee bit. By the way, that review was really quick because we've reviewed it a few times, and it's worth repeating. Again, practice, solidifying our understanding, and practicing the dialectic. But if that was a bit too much, then you can go back through the old streams. They're all posted on YouTube, so you can review them at your leisure. And just try moving my camera down a little bit, see if that makes me look handsomer. Whoops. Ogie smoky. Prometheus is far-seeing, knows the future, knows the present, and knows that he will only do what is providentially the best, and which means there has to be a principle of providence that is knowable, or a providentially intelligible cosmos that we live in. So that would be important for us to understand and verify ourselves, that we live in a understandable, knowable cosmos, that everything that happens is for a kind of providence. And it seems like our job is to participate in that providence and to recognize that belief specifically prevents that ability to participate in providence, because belief causes problems. So if you are fiercely loyal to belief, you won't be forced to benefit, but you'll be specifically blocking yourself from participating in benefit, because the movement from belief to understanding, knowledge, and self is what benefits. So I don't want to be better. I like being sexist. Well, then you're not going to get better. So there is an element of freedom to choose not to play. I like being a hater. I like imitating my parents. I like being a Jew, Christian, Muslim, Mormon, etc., etc., etc. Also, you won't be able to participate in providence because it's through the application of understanding the dialectic that we can unpack the messages of our problems in midwifery, to get the meaning and benefit our soul, but also to get the benefit from our dreams. Dream analysis also follows the dialectic, and of course knowledge and self. So understanding is a win-win-win-win-win-win. So what other times did he mention Prometheus? What? Prometheus. What? Look at that. I made a little Prometheus note here. Didn't mean to do that. Let's go back to the first mention of Prometheus. Plato, so page 12. Plato said it was Prometheus's gift to man. That's the dialectic. Hooray! The dialectic is Prometheus' gift to man. From that gift, all the arts came into existence, which would mean that there's art. Not only does it apply to the four things we mentioned already, truth, philosophy, false, midwifery, both, dreams, sharing, mythology, all other arts should follow the dialectical structure, as the dialectic is the structure, the usable skill or art of rationality, of reason and understanding. So, ain't gonna do no more debates on YouTube, okay, humans? You silly humans. No more debates. One fascist versus 20, I don't know, capitalists. Who's going to win? Slop. Dialectic is the gift from Prometheus to mankind. It makes man move from a creature of nature who was forced to live in caves to being able to be the mean between nature and the intelligible realm. So that's, again, because we've read further and we've learnt that our purpose in this kind of learning is Apollo, or to keep an eye on our goal as we continue to read, and that goal is to become Zeus ourselves. We can add more. So we can go to the page in your notebook where you've got a lovely picture of Zeus, and you can add to that this idea. When we reach our goal, we will be able to be a mean between nature and the intelligible realm. So that's our sage. Okay, so the dialectic helps us make that journey from belief to understanding. From savages or cavemen to sages or human beings. From Hesiod and this guy we learnt, Asclepius, we learned much about Prometheus. Together they are the ones who carried the torch of reason and helped us to understand the human predicament. All mankind is caught between the extremes of being part of nature, caveman fiercely loyal to tribe, booga booga, and the intelligible, knowing the self, Zeus, with a provident, remember? Apollo is to focus on the source of all as we do our reading. And what's our goal? To become the source of all, the self that is guided by excuse me. Big stretch. To be guided by divine wisdom through which we can take care of all living and non-living things. That's providence. So we can add the dialectic to that functioning, because it's that way in which we can benefit all beings, and we will also be a mean. So we can continue to add to our idea of Zeus as the ultimate goal. Again, from the text, not your own beliefs. Don't cram Jesus or Moses or Abraham in there or anything. Or Xenu if you're a Scientologist, or Joseph Smith if you're a Mormon. Don't cram them in. They don't fit. That's the difference between reading and interpretation. Following through with the gift of Prometheus, the dialectic, we would still like to see if making those divisions help us understand. Okay, where's the next? Prometheus' gift was the dialectic. So that's the only... Oh my goodness. Drink more coffee. That's the only other time we've mentioned Prometheus. So, this is how you read. You find the other times that he was mentioned and you weave them together to make sense of the puzzle that came to light in reading it the first time. What's the puzzle? We were just talking about Dreams is the most sacred way of understanding. When people seek meaning in dreams, their way of being is enhanced. They awaken a common spirit that brings into being the culture of mind. That's the new common spirit and culture of mind that we need to develop as human beings, individually, in our own families and relationships, but also as a species. But, that's not your job for species yet, until you Zeusify yourself, but in your own life. And this is important because Jesus said in a moment earlier, the task of understanding dreams, says Socrates, is nothing other than applying that way of reason to the realm of dreams. Analogical thinking, which we have been practicing ourselves by theology. Theology is making a analogy between the 12 Olympian gods and the 12 fundamental principles of metaphysics. Necessary for everything that exists and our soul's development. So you can get better at that analogical thinking by understanding dreams. Dream takes an analogical form in that it contains an anagogic function to raise the souls of man to the divine. That's Hermes' job, to raise us to Zeus with his magic shoes with wings on them. So we apply analogical thinking and the dialectic to dreams. So Jesus goes on, I admire what you're doing to show that dreams can be understood through analogy, and dialectic is the new dawn of reason. So that's the new dawn, the new age, the dawn of reason. And then we can sing, it is the age of Aquarius, but that means the age of wisdom, reason and mind through dream analysis and dialectic and analogical thinking. And you make the song. I'm busy. I did get you started, so I still get 10% of your residuals if it is a hit. To show that dreams are personally meaningful to those to whom they come is very profound. Who can say man cannot ascend to the intelligible if dreams disclose their secrets? So if dreams do contain that personal understanding of your present and future and past, and you can link them together providentially to help, should you use analogy in the dialectic to unpack it properly, to remove your false beliefs that limit you, and to guide you in that upward anagogic movement to know the nature of reality, mind, and self, then you can't ever have anyone coming along and saying, you can't be a mystic, you can't know God, just have belief, just have faith, just do as you're told, just kill the non-believers, just give us all your money, just murder the Palestinians, just invade Iraq because God told George Bush that was the right thing to do, just vote for Trump because your preacher said Trump had. You can't do any of that. But if we do apply this dialectic, which is the art we're here to master, to our dreams, we can awaken a common spirit that brings the culture of mind and discloses all of the intelligible secrets of reality to us. In other words, you don't have to believe shit, you can know it yourself. And the interesting thing about getting to that knowing through dream analysis is you're necessarily developing an understanding of it. So because it's the dialectic or understanding that's being applied. In other words, your dreams, most of your dreams are about your blocks or your false beliefs. So necessarily, providentially, we can see dreams function in a providential way, in part because it is forcing you, or not forcing you, but it is encouraging you to, through its dream messages, remove your false beliefs and develop an understanding, because understanding is what the dialectic you have to apply to it, such that when you do have the experience of the divine, call it God if you want, you won't make sense of it with your beliefs, which is the problem that Jesus had in Mark, and get more entrenched and think that you are the chosen one and, kill people or whatever. And you will also have that skill of understanding you've been developing along the way to make sense of it properly. and integrate it properly. Therefore, providence. We're not giving the gun to baby. Dreams function in a providential way in that it prepares us for that vision and how we can properly relate to it afterwards. The aftercare. If we talk about, as we just read earlier, each of these stages of cognitive development has its equivalent of perception and participation in beauty and love that people in a loving relationship can reach themselves. And what happens after an act of intimacy or a profoundly blissful experience of participation in beauty? The afterglow, if you're doing it right. In other words, the afterglow of that experience, you best make sense of it with understanding and not belief. And fortunately, dreams prepare you for just that. And by the way, when you reach the ultimate blissful experience, either or both in your loving, intimate relationships and in dream experiences, that's not the end. As we saw, Plato says in the Symposium, you have to start from there to develop true excellence. And one of the differences between Plato and Socrates is Plato doesn't outline what that excellence is and what that development of excellence is, only that it would be the application of the logos that you've been learning to address the cause of profound bliss and beauty or knowledge, and develop a way of being which we can now call Zeus, that uses it as a divine wisdom, but does not identify with it. It is beyond it. So, Socratic and not Platonic. Okay. So here are our players. Let's keep reading. It is this background culture that we can, from this background culture, because of this background culture, we can say Prometheus personifies a remarkable foresight that goes beyond mere thinking. Says Socrates. His far-seeing knows the future as it knows the present, and on a personal level, this kind of knowing even knows that it will only do what is providentially the best. And on the general level, it is an awareness that there is a profound structure of justice that is in place, because that is what it means to say our cosmos is providentially intelligible. If you seek justice in yourself, in your soul, in your relationships, and in the world, if you want justice, you're sick of injustice and you want justice. You want to live in a good world, not a bad world. Justice means that the cosmos is providentially intelligible. That's what the word justice means. That there is an understandable, knowable, rational structure of harmony that permeates all existence that we can align our soul and culture to as the paradigm. That's justice. It's universal. Everyone can play. It's beneficial, providential. Everyone benefits, not just the billionaires, not just the white people, not just the Christians, not just the Jews. None of that division, horse shit used to justify violence and sadism and division. Justice is to say our cosmos is providentially, beneficially, intelligible, knowable, and understandable. That's what the word justice means. Wow. Wow. Tell your friends. Wow. And all your friends will be there and they will all say, wow, 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 wow. See, that's all your friends saying, wow. You've got a lot of friends, it seems. Jesus comes in. Yes, you expressed it well. However, there are many people who live without mythology. And even if some of them had it, I wonder if they could bring themselves to understand it. Ooh. It may be that you Hellenes smile and live without the oppressive hand of punishment. No, exactly. Punishment is violence. Violence and ignorance masquerading as knowledge or sadism. The sadism of the false imitation of knowing from a believer. So you live without the oppressive hand of punishment and sin upon you all. Surely the greater the fear, the more the need for a sacrificing punishment. Are you advancing the idea that man is free to enter this Hellenic mind that you have drawn up? But it is dead and over, isn't it? Didn't we Christians kill you philosophers in 529 AD, starting the Dark Ages? And didn't we murder anybody who had a Bible for 1,000 years and completely oppress and subjugate women? I thought we killed the human spirit and the desire to understand. Now that is an interesting question. Surely if ever similar conditions arise, we can expect similar events. To set in place myths so transparent that they communicate principles in nature and of the mind is truly remarkable. So, similar conditions, similar effects. You plant the seeds and you give them water and sunlight and nutrient-rich soil. They will grow. They will grow next year and the year after it. Have the same conditions in another paddock and you will be able to grow crops there as well. Similar conditions, similar effects. So he's saying, hey, we better set in place these myths, which would be perhaps those giving birth to works that rival Homer and Hesiod we mentioned earlier. The many years it must have taken to find parallels between such personification, and then for the people to spell out their relationships with one another is remarkable. The inherent hierarchy among the gods can add yet another dimension to this utmost craft. First chatter of the day is spam. Delete. That makes me a bit sad. Anyway, keep going. So myths communicate the principles in nature and mind through personification, but also we have to spell out the relationships with one another to talk about how those principles and causes relate to each other, and also we have to hierarchically arrange these. So if you have an anime, you have to have a series of protagonists and antagonists. They all have to have their own unique characteristics. One is a master of the wood style, one is a master of the water style, one is a warrior type, one is a emo type. All right, and they have to be ranked. So the big boss gives them ranks. You are A, B, C, D, or you are the first henchman of the Soul King. You are the second henchman. You are the third henchman. And the stories that you watch talk about are fun because they tell you about their inherent characteristics themselves and what they represent. But also the relationships play out between themselves. So hierarchy, so we've got a fundamental parts, hierarchically arranged, and playing out the relationships so you can understand how they function together. Any good anime has this happening in it. And if they don't, the viewer base will try and make it. Like how the people try to find out who has the best power levels. So they didn't, in Dragon Ball Z, they weren't explicit with power levels, and it took, everyone wanted to know who was Nappa stronger than Vegeta, stronger than Raditz, stronger than And now with the Super Saiyan God, Kaioken level 1, all this crazy stuff, then the fan base have gone insane. So that's mythology. So what? So he's saying, hey, isn't the Hellenic mind dead? And Socrates says, well, how about we make those myths again? And if those myths allowed that development of understanding in the Hellenic culture, then ipso facto could happen again. And Jesus says to that, you return to the idea of hierarchy. And while there are some things about that idea I am familiar with, there is a question in my mind about the way you use the term. When do you find it important to use the idea of hierarchy? You speak again about the idea of hierarchy, Jesus, and that is a good question to reflect upon. Before we explore that idea, let's recall the language of the elements of our theology, because our theology plays a major role in our system. First then, what ideas are derived from the notion of the one or the good? Okay, so previously we were going from the bottom up. So this list of gods that we have on the board. Zeus in the ruling, Zeus, Poseidon, Hephaestus in the ruling triad, or the existing triad. Hestia, Athena, and Ares in the preserving triad. Demeter, Hera, and Artemis, the ladies, in the vivific, or inspiring power triad. And Hermes, Aphrodite, and Apollo in the anagogic, or upward moving triad. This is what we do. This is how we go up. We read and focus on Zeus. We are inspired to play this game, and we end up mastering the dialectic, which is the gift of Prometheus as well. Okay, so this was a way of understanding metaphysics from the bottom up, from us being we souls, we beings, or noodles. Small bean means that you think of yourself as not good enough, inadequate. So the small bean is the way of thinking of your pathologos, your kaka daemon, bad voice of the pathologos, image of the self. Being a good noodle means you are doing your best to move upward through this from Apollo to Zeus. But now we're having a look at metaphysics top down. What's the highest term? The one self or the good self? Let's jump into that. What ideas are derived from the notion of the one or the good? Surely we can say the ideas of oneness, unity, union, communion, wholeness, and the idea of the whole. And you probably think I'm going to press all of the buttons on Emma's soundboard until she says the more holes the better. And you'd be right.
I've been a bad little duopogger. I'm too pure. The more holes, the better. Better, 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 better,
Hooray.
better, better,
You got
better,
there.
better, better.
The more holes, the better. The idea of the whole and all wholes are all from that idea. From the one. From the one, you get oneness. Unity, union, communion, wholeness, whole, and whole wholes. Do you want your soul to be divided or whole? Do you want humanity to be unity or divided? Well, the fact that we want unity and wholeness in our soul and in our species all derives from the highest metaphysical notion, the one. So that allows us to have good things emanating downward, but it also guides us upward. If we seek wholeness and unity, ultimately we will end up with one self. However, if we set aside these ideas that are derived from the one and ask about the one itself, shall we not be surprised to discover that it can only be described in negative terms? Again, what if we can describe it in positive terms? Would we not be equally surprised? But the good or the one is expressed in negatives. As the idea of the good is expressed through positive terms. So the good or the one is expressed in negatives. In other words, we talked about it being the cause of all qualities, the cause of even the highest experience of beauty, love, knowledge, usia. Therefore, the idea of the good, which I just described, beauty, the ultimate goal of love, pure usia, knowingness, the logos experienced fully or all at once out of time. Literally, those words itself were the highest positives that we have in our language. Justice, beauty, goodness, excellence. These are, we don't have better words. It's the tippy, 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 top, top. Okay, tippy, tippy, top, top is a metaphysical term. So the idea of the good is expressed through positive terms. Let's make that pink because it's the end of the symposium. Well, it's the highest experience of beauty from which we go on to the one of the good. But the one of the good is in negatives. Here is the difference between the good and the idea of the good. Again, what if this second term, the idea of the good, can be experienced in all its fullness, as perfect, as pure beauty, as ultimate reality, always the same, always the same, as an unchanging and eternal, most luminous light of being. And with it, it brings an insight into the meaning of existence. Okay? So somehow when you have that experience, you gain an insight into the whole reason you were born in the first place. Or existence exists. All of existence exists in the first place. That's how kick-ass it is. Look at the words. Perfect, pure beauty, ultimate reality, always the same, unchanging and eternal, most luminous light of being, insight to the meaning of life. Like, we don't have greater words. These are the best. Isn't that neat? I think it's pretty neat. And so does this flamingo that sits on my desk. And if we have two of us agreeing, then it's democracy. We have a consensus, and it must be true. It is neat that we can understand the meaning of life and the experience that brings with it an insight into the meaning of life, and we can understand the idea of the good and pure ultimate reality. Hooray, pure beauty and ultimate reality. I think it's neat we can understand it and experience it. Is it possible that the next term might be something that, when taken as a whole, has many parts and passes in and out of existence and is never at rest? Then these three ideas seem to be linked together in a descending manner, and if each can be said to either be the cause or condition for the next, then what would you say we have? Okay, so we have the first term, which is only expressed in negatives, the second term, which is only expressed in the highest positives, and then we have a whole with many parts as the third term. that goes in and out of existence, never at rest. So what's this third term? And my wondering is, everything we've been seeing so far, the meaning of life, well, the purpose of us is to go from the cause of problems, stage 4, belief, not down into the modern Democrats, which are a massive difference with no model, no understanding, and they only make personal statements. Everything is relative. Don't be like Chuck Schumer, who sets the stage for fascism and doesn't help anyone and just grifts to make his own personal money, because who's to say that grifting is wrong? Okay, that's 5, massive difference. Belief, the cause of problems. So you say 5 is the conditions for the cause. To go from 4 to understanding, following the Logos dialectic, to knowing. So we've got this as our only described in positives, and then beyond that, the one or the good, which we now say is only in negatives. So does that mean that this whole of many parts going in and out of existence and is always never at rest? Is that understanding? Because we've also said believers are never at rest because they're in opposition between rest and motion. So there's no peace within the soul and within the functioning of believers. That's why we can't have believers running things. They just play out their problems, project it, and kill people. Whether we like it or not, that's just the truth. So, is it understanding? Or is it a negative kind of thing? Let's keep reading and find out. I see what you're doing, says Jesus. You are presenting a metaphysical view of creation as it proceeds from the one into being, which is ultimate reality, then to soul. Ah, okay. So it wasn't a cognitive functioning, it was a existence. So cognitive function, the fancy word for that is epistemology, and things that exist, the fancy word for that is ontology. So we're going through an ontology. So one to being, which is ultimate reality, to the soul. They stand as a basic triad, says Jesus. So you call those terms being arranged in a hierarchy, do you? Yes, indeed. Now take the idea of the God of theism. We're going to compare it to regular theism. What ideas, not theology, personification of these metaphysical principles, theism, literal belief, sky daddy bullshit, cause of human suffering. What ideas follow from this idea? As our set of terms for the one followed from it? Well, they don't have a parallel set of terms, says Jesus. That is clear. Oh. Fresh my back. Then again, if some kind of reasoning can express the kinship these terms have, then it is possible that the same kind of reasoning can be applied to more fundamental ideas. What? What's more fundamental than the one or the good? I don't get it. Jesus says, I do like what you're saying. Now, in what way might it proceed from the highest term to the lower? If we reason about it further and attempt to describe how these ideas can be said to relate to one another, we can say that in this hierarchical arrangement of terms, each generates an image of itself. Ooh. And in the process, imitates its own birth, bringing a likeness akin to itself into being. Likeness. Equally, what is prior to each in the hierarchy subsumes within itself the majesty and power revealed in its subsequent. Interesting. So it functions to create a likeness in generation, and that likeness can be understood as what reveals the inherent majesty and power that is subsumed within its cause. Interesting. Or we can say the relation of the antecedent to its consequent is model to copy, or object to its shadow. Now that's a new word, let's write it on the board. So we've been talking about analogies. Believers are a slave to analogy. As Abraham kills, so too must modern Abrahamics kill to follow the will of their God. Understanding can use analogies to communicate and help people. Midwifery seeks to find the underlying analogy. Past is to the present. That's the cause of our projection and our blocks. It's through analogy that we learn. How do you be a king? Let me tell you a story about how a shepherd is to a sheep. Now, but we also talk about this movement from belief into understanding via the art of the dialectic. We can then, we are learning from the text. So the text, or Socrates, is teaching us good noodles. We are good noodles. But then when we reach it ourselves, when we reach this mastery of the dialectic and become Zeus and a friend to the gods and immortal as any man can be, we can ourselves teach others, or function as a dialectician, midwife, and dream analyzer to others. That's the model of teaching. And because this is not just a teaching about the physical world, it's a teaching of everything, including our soul. Model of teaching. Then a special kind of teaching called the Dharma. Dharma is a spiritual teaching. The Dharma, or Dharma progression, or Dharma successorship. Whereas people who are stuck in belief to staying stuck in belief is A is to B as your parent passed on their religious beliefs and way of being and false image of the self and clan way of being to child. All human beings, it's not a punishment or blame game, it's just the way we are. So too, the child seeks opportunities in his life, loving relationships, sexual fantasies, domination relationships, becoming a business owner, having employees you can shit on, etc., etc., to being himself the same imitation of ignorance to others. Do unto others the same injustice that was done unto me. Stagnant. Doesn't go beyond A and B. Stagnant. That's the model of ignorance. Pathologos. Stagnant ousia. No growth. So that's the two ways of learning that human beings can engage in. One is bad, belief. One is good, understanding. That is it. Isn't it interesting? Haven't philosophers and political leaders been trying to find the root of human problems for ages? Hasn't spiritual mystics like Buddha himself, the Gautama Buddha, wanting to solve the problem of human suffering? Oh yes, very mysterious. We can't know. I guess we just have to blow ourselves up with nukes because we never solved that problem. We got too good at making bombs before we solved the problem. What could be causing? Oh, what a mysterious. What's the cause of problems? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to sit under a lotus tree for 50 years and then maybe it will come into my brain from magic. Isn't that what we're told? What if it's just this simple? What's the cause of human problems? Oh, just one thing, belief. That's it. Just belief. It's that simple. Just belief. What's the end? How do you put an end to suffering? Oh, yeah. Well, that's more complicated. No, it's not. It's also one word. Understanding. What? But the lotus tree. But the waterfall I must sit under for 50 years and hone my chi and master my spiritual pressure and do one punch 100,000 times before I master it. Only then can I awaken the mystery of human problems. Well, or you can just look at the board. Oh wait, I'll have some coffee. There you go. Say more? Oh yeah, well look underneath. This is it. That is expressed as a mean analogy. Remember we just read? Our job is to be the mean between nature and the divine. That's the job for human beings. It's a mean analogy. Why do belief cause problems? Oh, because it's stagnant. It's a fundamentally sick or broken analogy. It doesn't work because it's redundant. So there's your math. Now, I don't mean to come off as arrogant. I'm just trying to say what's simple in simple terms so it can be appreciated for how fun it is that it's simple. And I only know this because I'm reading the book. Anyone can read the book. It's not like I have special knowledge. I'm not some special person. I have, what did we say, like 80 followers on Twitch and like 150 on YouTube. I get an average of like, I don't know, 1 viewer on Twitch and maybe 10 for my videos on YouTube. I ain't no Hassan Piker. I'll face him in an arm wrestle though. Come on, Hassan. Arm wrestle me. Arm wrestle me, Hassan, for content. Do it for content. For leftist content. I guess you'd say I'm leftist, in that I want to progress. I wouldn't identify with the modern Democrats who are a mass of difference, stage 5. Rejecting principles for it's all relative. Hey, welcome sus. Just in time, I'm issuing a call out. Oh, thank you very much. Would you say I'm even more handsome than Hassan Piker? Platonically, well, we can't do anything more than Socratically. You appreciate the beauty of that you see in me. You don't know who Hassan? Oh well, you're lucky. Don't look him up. He's like one of the most popular Twitch creators. I think he gets the most viewers. Yeah, you appreciate the beauty that you perceive in me as a reflection of the beauty of reality itself. And you wonder about the original cause to add love and logos together to awaken your own experience of beauty itself, or knowing ultimate reality. And from that experience of ultimate reality, or pure being, or pure beauty that we just read, is the idea of the good is expressed through the greatest positive terms. Perfection, pure beauty, ultimate reality, always the same, unchanging and eternal, most luminous light of being. It brings with it an insight into the meaning of life. And above that, its cause, the good or the one, can only be described in negative terms. It's not beauty. It's not an experience. It's not knowledge. It transcends it in a unique way. That's the movement from the highest experience of pure beauty to its cause, the self, which is what we're here to do. And that's what makes us Socratic. Plato talks a lot about the idea of the good, or beauty itself, or justice. The inherent ordering within that experience is justice. But Socrates talks about going beyond it to know the self. And that experience of pure beauty generates a likeness of it into time. That's the soul. So we've got 3 levels. We've got the self, being, and the soul in this paragraph that we just read. And you came at just the right time, because I was issuing a challenge to this content creator on Twitch for arm wrestle. We are going to gamble 50% of our viewers. He looks average. Yeah, good, yes. Very well said. He is average looking. See, this is part of my taunting to him. I'm taunting him to an arm wrestling competition. I'll challenge him. Oh, I just got back from the gym. Got a cramp. And I'm going to taunt him by saying, my followers think you're average looking. And we're going to have an arm wrestle for content. And if I win, I get 50% of his Twitch followers, which is about 25,000 people. And if he wins, he gets half of my followers. Not you, Isadori. He can have Isadori. I get about 2 viewers. So, yep. And that's the challenge. I call out you, Hassan. See, you're average looking, apparently. See? He's doing okay. He's one of the content creators that is interested in understanding and addressing injustice in the world. But of course, without what we're doing here, he can only describe injustice. It's bad when there are fascists. It's bad when there's capitalism. It's bad when there's wealth inequality. But to solve problems, we need to address the cause. And the study of addressing causes of problems and the model or the cause of actual justice is what we're doing here. Philodianoia, love of understanding. So while I'm arm wrestling him, I'll secretly be, I'll be like, oh, push the arm. I'll be saying, by the way, metaphysics is the addressing of causes. Don't you wish the Democrats had a model of justice? That's the movement through the cognitive functions from right opinion to mastery of the dialectic, which prepares your mind to know the model. So I'll be implanting Socratic ideas into his brain while we arm wrestle for content. If you have any better ideas for me to get my followers up, I'm open to listening. Dude. My plan is to get at least an 4 streams. I need 3 viewers on average, because then I get Twitch affiliate, and that means that people can watch my stream on like a lower quality. Someone in the Discord was saying I want to watch on my phone, I think, and at a lower like bit rate to save data. And apparently, because I'm not an affiliate, people only have like HD quality. But you can also get like reduced quality or just audio only. So that's why I'm calling out Hassan. Right, so we got some new terms that we're playing with. So the model of teaching, or Dharma, because it's a spiritual teaching, which is what we've discovered by this banger of a book, is simply to move from belief into understanding. That's our job. That's the dialectic, the art we're here to master. That's the study of philodianoia, love of understanding, that can be represented in an analogy. As Socrates is teaching us, we good noodles, when we master the dialectic, we ourselves can be teachers to others. A is to B, us as a student, as B is to C. So B is a mean. It functioned as a student here and as a teacher here. And of course, as they master, they can themselves teach others. C is to D, and then so on. D is to E. That's how the teaching can spread. That's the Dharma. Now, the cause of problems we are discovering is to be stuck in belief. As parent is to child, that's where we get our religious and individual pathologos beliefs. So too, we spend our lives looking for a situation where we can imitate our model of beauty or our model of knowing to others. As A is to B, so too A is to B. It's a redundant analogy. So in other words, we were saying, hey, isn't it interesting that mystics and spiritual people and philosophers have been... Exactly. Isn't it interesting that we are told, what is the cause of human problems? We just don't know. So let's have capitalism for a little bit longer, says the billionaires. What's the cause of human genocide and murder and injustice? Philosophers have been seeking to answer that question for millennia. So let's just invade some more countries and steal things, says politicians and billionaires. The meaning of life? Gautama Buddha sat under a tree for 40 years to find that question. There's no way you can find the meaning of life and know the nature of the divine. Just be a believer, says all the priests and ministers and imams and rabbis and clergy and preachers and rabbis and so on. It's so hard and complicated. Or it's not. It's just one word, the source of human problems, belief. What's the meaning of life or the solution to problems? It's also one word, understanding. Hooray. We didn't have to sit under a lotus tree for 40 years. We didn't have to sweep up at the ashram for 60 years. We didn't have to sit under a waterfall for 20 years. We just had to have a look at the book. Hooray. Wow. And we can express that movement from belief to understanding as the archetypal analogy of the mean analogy. We can express what it means to be stuck in a problem with the distortion of analogy, a redundant analogy, or the model of teaching, the Dharma, which happens through the dialectic. That's the art of using understanding to teach others and yourself. And equally so, the pathologos is the model of ignorance. Now, we're talking about this now because we have two new terms in the text. We have the antecedent, how do you spell that? It's in the book. It's all E's all the way through. Even the first I is an E. Oops. Antecedent. Whoa, my pen's being funny. Look at that. Antecedent is to consequent. S-E-Q-U-E-N. Oh my goodness, my pen. Consequent. So this is the antecedent, this is the consequent. This causes that. And so these are just terms for either side of the double dots. Double dots, double dots, double dots. So, as Socrates says, each within the hierarchy from the good or the one to the idea of the good or being to the soul, each generates an image of itself, bringing a likeness to itself. And in that creation or copy, your copy reveals the majesty, so the majesty and power of the subsequent or the effect is the revealing of the majesty and power that's subsumed within its cause. The cause has to have it to create from it. Another way of saying that is antecedent to consequent, which is this. This side creates this side. Or model is to copy. Or an object is to its shadow. Ever walked out in the sun? In generating each, the process repeats itself within each level so that each is a center that generates circles, reflects its power and intelligence in a particular way. Okay, so we've got to draw some circles. It's good because we've got a circle thing up on here. So let's do the one or the good. Okay. Why is my pen being funny? The one or the good, which then generates its circle. To create the idea. Oops. The idea, which is a Greek word for to behold or experience. Idea of the good, beholding the good, that's the divine luminosity experience, or the or being, and all the other positive terms. So justice itself, pure beauty, radiant light, bliss, knowingness. So these are all positives. Now, because all of the highest use of language describes that experience, therefore the one or the good has to subsume it but transcend it. So you can only really describe it in negatives. It's not beautiful, it's not knowing, it's not in a transcendent way. Now, there is a special way of describing it positively using negatives in the first hypothesis of Parmenides. But that's the puzzle of this. And we do have a series on the first hypothesis, but I did record it like a year or so ago, so I don't know how good the quality is, but the content is good. But we can go back to it one day when we go back to the Parmenides as well. And this generates its circle of Sol. Each is a center. A center that generates circles and reflects the power and intelligence in a particular way. Reflects power and intelligence. That's interesting. Jesus says, highlight that too. Put it in pink so I remember to look back on it later. Jesus says, then I assume you assign gods to these hierarchical principles and create your mythology. So we assign gods to these hierarchical principles. That's what we have for mythology. Hooray. Which is the fourth functioning of the dialectic. Know the truth, philosophy, remove the false, midwifery, do both, dream analysis, share it with others, mythology. The four aspects of the study Philodianoia. The new way of being, or us humans. As good noodles. The good noodles do Philodianoia. Cheers. Yes, Jesus, says Socrates. Yes, that is so. And then it is possible to allegorize these so-called myths to show parallels with the spiritual plane. So that's the thing. Someone comes along and makes a story about gods, or for us it would be Spider-Man. How does Spider-Man do something? Defeat Mary Jane. No, kiss Mary Jane. Defeat Dr. Octopus. And for us viewers of that content, we have to unpack the allegory or allegorize them to find the parallel with the spiritual plane. So that's how these works can be objects of reflection and study. For we good noodles. I like that expression for some reason. To be a good noodle. Let's bring it back. Socrates. Jesus. The language of Hellenic myths falls on deaf ears in the lands of Judea. He's already talked about that. So this is the issue. Jesus said, hang on a second. All this thing that you've been doing, Socrates, championing understanding, helping us reason through how to solve problems, the cause of human problems, and how to use a freedom from problems to further develop understanding, to understand the nature of the divine being, how it causes souls, and how it itself has a cause, the one which is our goal to know the self. You're doing really, really great work, Socrates. But But didn't we kill the Hellenics? Wasn't that what the founder of Christianity, Emperor Justinian, did in 529 AD? Murder the philosophers, shut down the academy, and murder anyone who had a Bible so they couldn't think for themselves? Didn't we kill it? And Socrates said, well, hang on a second. In similar if you have the same conditions in reality, in the cosmos, you'll have the same effects. So, where do you say that? Back a little bit. Somewhere here. Here we go. By the way, this game removes all idea of abusing people by telling them that they are terrible or sinners or less than men if they're women, or less than the whites if they're not white, less than the rich if they're poor. All that horseshit goes. There is no more punishment and sin. Hooray! Because that's all from belief and oppression caused by belief. Understanding you don't understand that you're bad, you understand that you are the best, the good. And you don't solve problems by killing people. That's stupid. You solve problems through creating the conditions so we can master the dialectic. It's just that easy. Just that easy. Oh my goodness, just that easy. Right? You don't have to... You can't patent this. Can't be owned by Amazon. You don't have to buy a monthly subscription. It's for everyone. And if I beat Hassan in that arm wrestle, that 25,000 people will have to learn it every episode of the stream. Because that's the wager. But hang on a second. So you're Socrates, so we don't need to kill people or make people feel bad about themselves. Or we remove the idea of for a sacrificing punishment. But are you advancing the idea that man is free to enter this Hellenic mind that you are drawing up? Isn't it dead and over? Didn't we kill you guys? And he said, if you are in similar conditions arise, we can expect similar effects. Oh, what's this one? Break to have a look at. Oh, we have our chatter making notes. And then our chatter is wearing a Rastafarian hat. And now our chatter is thinking with a flower petal doing a loading screen. Very cute. So, similar conditions, punishment and condemnation. But how are we supposed to use intermittent reinforcement for people to be good for heavenly rewards? That is a difficulty. We'll have to do something different, I think. I think we can just have fun reading books that are awesome anyway. And our intermittent reinforcement will be coffee in between readings of this book. Oh, and dream analysis. And midwife talks, why not? I mean, we'd have to just share all of the resources and technology with everyone on the planet in the most renewable, rational way, efficient, in harmony with all of the environment, so that we wouldn't have to work anymore, we wouldn't have to sacrifice our lives for freedom, and we would have the space and time to just read this and do our purpose every day and fulfill our destiny. But we'd all get coffee. Has not occurred to you to do something different. Ah, see? This is why you subscribe to my channel. I am full of wonderful ideas. You just have to believe me and worship me as the new coming of Jesus. Yes. No, you just have to follow the stream, because if you're in the stream, you're a good noodle. That's what it means to be a good noodle. Because you're using your noodle. Wait. Uh-oh. Does Crash agree? Crash is thinking about whether he is going to dedicate his life to the worship of me. I guarantee you everlasting life. You can't prove it, but trust me, when you die, trust me, bro, you'll get like Bugatti, and you'll be the coolest dude ever. So you don't even have to give me your money. All you do is get a picture of my face on a t-shirt and shave your head and chant Hare Krishna. I don't know. I'm bailing on this stupid bit. I can't think of anything funny. So the idea is, well, how can we recreate the Hellenic mind of understanding, open to this ability to solve problems and reach our highest experience, knowledge, and beyond that to the self? Well, hey, similar conditions, similar effects. And then he went straight on to talk about the personification of these metaphysical principles in myths. The inherent, the implication being, if we can create a mythology that, based on our work here, we are setting the conditions for mankind to learn what we are learning, and then bring in this new age, the new dawn of reason, mind, and the Hellenic way of being, loving understanding. So that's pretty neat. Yeah, create some good myths. And by the way, this idea of metaphysics being a hierarchical list of terms from a cause downward or from our soul upward, that has each is a personification of a principle within a hierarchy, and the stories tell of the relationships between these principles. That's every single anime I've ever watched. I'm watching Bleach now, and so the bad guys have a hierarchy of villains, a Green Lantern ring. Ooh. And the good guys have a hierarchy of like warriors as well, and each have their own power. Each have their own functioning, each represent their own different idea, and the stories about how they relate to each other. It's storytelling. The difference is we using it specifically to talk about what's true, and people who watch our animes that we make can then unpack it. Hierarchy to reflect on. Okay, then we made our own hierarchy from the one into oneness, unity, union, communion, wholeness, and the idea of whole and wholes. Metaphysical view from the one creates a being, and from the being to soul. So these are our Green Lantern rings. Maybe? Is that what you mean? The one or the good emanates or creates being, and being looks upon itself as a model, which is our model of justice and beauty and loving relationships, and uses that model to create the soul. Each of those could be characters in a story that you write. And Socrates says, Yes, indeed. Let's take the idea of the God of theism. What ideas follow from this idea? Has our set of terms from the one, oneness, whole, etc., followed from it? Oh, here we go. We've gone past that. So each reflects the power and intelligence in the creation. The blueprint to the algorithm, exactly. Exactly. Yes, the blueprint to the algorithm of how to make a banger anime. And create the conditions for the birth of this new way of being, the Hellenic mind. Philodainoia. So, we create these we use our growth to find these hierarchical principles. We bake it into our mythology, our storytelling about Spider-Man doing a thing with Mary Jane and then Dr. Octopus. And have some sort of hierarchy in there, like a hierarchy of Spider-Man's girlfriends or Spider-Man's abilities or other super people in the League of Justice or something. And then the people who watch it have to allegorize these so-called myths to show to unpack the parallels with the spiritual plane. And then Jesus says, hey, this whole thing that you've been talking about is falling on deaf ears in the land of Judea. That's a statement. That's a myth. What does the lands of Judea represent in this book? Believers. What's Christianity? Pauline Judaism. What does Islam, Judaism, and Christianity have in common? Abraham. The lands of Judea represent believers, people stuck in the cause of problems, where the antecedent and the consequent are identical, redundant. So we can unpack that sentence, the language of Hellenic myths, the understanding of metaphysics and theology, the movement from belief into understanding, the Dharma. The Dharma is falling on deaf ears of believers. See how good this book is? It describes something. It's like a video game. Like good video games teaches you how to do something. This is Mario. He jumps over the Goomba, and then he hits the block, and then he jumps over the gap. That's the first screen of Mario Brothers 1. Teaches you how to do it. You fall in, and you get hit by the Goomba, and you miss the block. But then after you've learnt the mechanic, it then builds on it. Now you can use it. Now climb up these things and rescue the princess. The tutorial, yeah. Good games build in the tutorial. Now this book is the archetype. It just taught us the significance of mythology. It's a way of creating the conditions for humanity to rediscover the Hellenic mind. It's told us the stakes. That's how we solve problems and save our species and become Zeus ourselves. And people who read it have a job to unpack to find the allegory. So it taught us, and then it just did it. In one brilliant sentence. The language of Hellenic myths fall on deaf ears in the land of Judea. The lands of Judea is a myth. Hellenic, the language of Hellenic myths. See? It teaches you, and then it says go and do it. This book bangs so hard that even your grandchildren will have traumatic brain injury. That's how hard this book bangs. It bangs harder than 2 MMA fighters fighting over the last protein shake at the gym. That's how hard it bangs. You find a better myth. It bangs harder than two Instagram influencers fighting over a prank, the last Pokemon cards in Walmart. I don't know. You do it. Yes, says Socrates. Socrates says, yes. Whoops. Yes, to allegorize myths mean you learn a new way of reasoning. It's like a video game, because it is. Yeah, I guess that's the fundamental myth that we're using here. Allegorize myths means you learn a new way of reasoning. It challenges the mind to find forces in nature and among mankind that can be summarized into images and forms, consistent with and representative of higher forces. Well, there we go. He's just unified it into a single brilliant sentence. You allegorize myths. Allegorize means it's a metaphor that represents the spiritual upward or anagogic movement. And if you do that, you yourself learn a new way of reasoning. You're bettering yourself and whoever participates in your content. Challenges the mind to find forces in nature and among mankind that can be summarized into images and forms that are consistent with and representative of higher forces. It does another thing of importance. It holds back those who would take myths literally. There is no Sky Daddy wagging his finger at you saying you have to do what Daddy says, otherwise you get a spanking and go to hell, and the rapture will not rapture your ass. You'll be left behind. Not literal. It holds back those who take myths literally. It's to use your brain, not to enslave your mind. A people without a mythology we call barbarians. Now we have the definition of the term barbarians Hellenics used in their stories. In the Republic, they talk about a city-state as a model or a magnification of the soul. How do you arrange the soul? Well, let's talk about how you arrange the city. There has to be a protective force that keeps out the barbarians. What are the barbarians? People without a mythology. People who don't value understanding the causes and principles of problems, the causes and principles of happiness, development, learning, and growth, the cause and principle and the ideal model of justice needed to have a just world, of beauty in order to create works of beauty. And they're not using myths to communicate those causes, principles, and models to everyone so everyone can play. They're saying, hey, just do as you're told while we scam everyone or murder everyone. That's barbarianism. People without a mythology are barbarians, or strangers to the gods, strangers to metaphysics, theology, understanding. To your own self. The soul is a reflection of being, which is the mind, your mind. And that is itself a reflection of you. That's the wild thing. We are going through a process of learning and discovering to allow us to see what's obvious. Because beliefs, we project. So there's another antecedent to consequence. Because of our pathologos here, we will then therefore have a problem because our problems are projections from the past projected into projection. So ever notice that fascists project their problems? It's the preacher saying all gays will go to heaven who turns out to be a closeted gay himself. It's the right-wingers who say, oh, the left are violent. We should kill them. The left is a secret cult of this and that. When they are projection. Projection is from our past into our present. That's how it functions to block our problems, block our development, because at present we can't see what's there in the present. We project the past. If I do this and that, I will be shut down the way I was shut down by my parents growing up, or the way Abraham was shut down by God. In other words, the present is what we're here to see. When we remove our problems, we are able to see what was there to be seen the whole time. That's the self. Stranger to the gods, and we could also say a stranger to the self. Jesus. Jesus says, "True it is. I have often heard how you Greeks call many people barbarians. Your people have borrowed from many countries and polished them with principles and created through them all the arts. Principles are needed for the arts. Much of your profound thought seemed to have been drawn from Egypt. Oh. And that makes us akin in that regard. Remarkable it is. You do see the task of you Greeks to bring others into your way of being and reasoning, don't you?" That's a big thing of the text. How do we share this? So we have people to talk to. So we have a better world, of course, better dates, of course, but like people that we can date, but also people to practice the dialectic with, and to create this way of being where we're not hurting each other. Bring others to this way of being, reasoning. It is a formidable task. Yes, it is hard. And trust me, but as someone who's been trying to share this understanding for a very long time, I have found it quite difficult. And yesterday I talked about using the text to try to do it a little bit better by playing beautiful and harmonious music, beauty and order, Aphrodite and Apollo. People who find a curiosity about that and say, how long have you been playing guitar? What they really mean is, I have perceived in my human senses beauty, Aphrodite, and order, rationality, harmony in your music. I want to know about its cause, and because we grow up without a mythology, we are barbarians. Under materialism, there's only the physical world. I think physical things, like music, half physical, have physical causes. How long have you been playing guitar? And I never liked that question. But this weekend, I tried to engage in dialectic with people, or to help people to understand the dialectic, because Apollo and Aphrodite is, Socrates says, we lead people into the dialectic, which is the point. We're all here to master this. Hermes, the god that ushers us to Zeus. And various levels of success and failure. But I'll keep trying. But yeah, it's in my experience, it's difficult. Specifically because where we start as barbarians in our barbarian culture is in belief. And belief specifically can only function if it blocks understanding. So if you talk about understanding, you're going to trigger people. If you talk about not just understanding, but the mind, you're going to trigger even more people. If you're talking about the dialectic or understanding and mind, and you start talking about the self, well, you're going to trigger almost everyone. The pathologos most strongly protects us from the ultimate, the self, because the root cause of the pathologos is its own emanation, a false image of the self, causing a false way of being and an idea of what it means to be a big, tough, strong knower, usually hurting people, shutting people down, criticizing people. And it's your own way of being or beliefs instead of understanding. It's a way of being and beliefs. That's been my experience as well. I have found a few people on this planet who love understanding. Of that group, it's like a pyramid. Of the people in the planet, there is a small amount of people who are interested in understanding. So if we make that the pyramid, of those people interested in understanding, of that group, an even smaller amount are interested in knowing the mind. Of that amount, even smaller, even fewer still, are interested in knowing the self. And equally so for removing false beliefs about understanding false beliefs about what reality is and false belief about the self. So in my experience, this has been very, very few. I'm still here, but listening. I'm glad to. It's time for an emoji break. We have a cute little girl. Her name is Sophie. We have some dancing, some raving. What is that? Is that a Pokemon? We have some twerking squirrels, kittens. It's a blue cat. We have a twerking blue cat and a raving blue cat playing music. Oh, that's me. That's me playing the music that I was talking about. And those are the people dancing to the music on the weekend. Indeed facts. Yeah. I learnt this the hard way, by the way. As someone born loving understanding, I've always been shocked at how rare it is. And also I've been quite shocked at how violent and repulsive the counterattack. But hopefully in my many years, I'm getting better at, anticipating the vicious counterattack by human beings to protect their beliefs and images, and presenting this in a way that makes people more open. In my experience, I need my guitar. Without my guitar, doesn't work. Well, except for you guys, but on this channel. Yeah. Anyway, going down memory lane. But yeah, I had some success on the weekend, so I'll continue to try and address people's questions about the cause of my music to the dialectic as best I can. I have the hypothesis we had was from Socrates talking about blacksmiths. Okay, not blacksmiths. Shoemakers. Shoe-ins. Socrates says, you know what I do? My way is to show that people who possess skills like tanners, smiths, and shoemakers, they have principles that underline their skills. And that's not different from the spiritual principles of philosophy. Recall that my philosophy starts with the fundamental principle: as heaven is to earth, or being is to the physical world, so too is model to copy. We have dancing owl and a cat being slapped in the face with cheese. That's very cute. Yeah, it's cool. So as models to copy. So from their own work, I mold images of excellence that contain all man needs to become noble and good. As I explore these ideas, I reflect on the role the gods have. So, and I even use the mythology they're familiar with. So I used the analogy as Theseus must slay the Minotaur, so too must philosophers slay death. And you do that by separating your soul from the body, and so you experience dropping dead before you drop dead. So on the weekend, I tried my best to use the words of the conversation as they came up, and use analogies people were familiar with, and even create analogies using, well, I didn't do this one, but I'm going to add this one in, Spider-Man and stuff. So we don't have Theseus and the Minotaur, but we have Spider-Man and Mary Jane and Dr. Octopus. And that's that same idea of model to copy. This is the model that copies this. As a blacksmith has a model that to make his giant hammer, or any hammer. As an artist has a model that he paints. So that's on the Titanic, that's Kate Winslet naked. And Leonardo DiCaprio looks at her to make his painting. But also, even that model itself, or the heavens or being, is itself an emanation or shadow of the first cause, the self. So, yeah, I don't know, try that. Try and use people's interests and mythology and words to make analogies to what you learn here to introduce people to the dialectic and metaphysics. Especially if you are yourself creating something beautiful and ordered, like a song, or if you're a hottie, if you're a hottie already, like if you're physically beautiful, make sure that you use rationality, or you talk about understanding, or you present yourself in a rational way, so that, because you've already got Aphrodite under your back pocket if you're a hottie. Under your back pocket, you've already got that on the table. Because Aphrodite is beauty, which inspires us to get curious about the source, but also there has to be a harmony or order. Aphrodite and Apollo. And people go, oh, that's so good. And you go, yes, by the way, do you want to know where the order, the inherent ordering of Apollo comes from? Or the source of beauty? To find that, you have to learn how to use your brain. Not your brain, your mind. The logos. That's Hermes. Good luck, and let me know how it goes, because we can help each other. So, and this was the other time. Oh, interesting. This is also a part of reading. If you find a key phrase that stands out to you, find other times in the text it was expressed and weave them together. We just heard the Hellenic myths falling on deaf ears in the lands of Judea, and here we are seeing it earlier on page 97. Jesus saying, you awaken people to the mystery of life and death by talking about Theseus slaying the Minotaur, or Spider-Man slaying Professor Sandman, I think. Just to say that you won't slay your fear of death unless you experience it, separate your soul from your physical senses. So Jesus says, you awaken people to the mystery of life and death by awakening their fears and hopes about life and death, and you lift their everyday experience to the level of the profound. You allegorize their myths to show parallels between the spiritual plane. So here we are allegorizing myths. But did your Plato make clear as he could what you were doing? Is your teaching for all mankind or only for the Hellenes? I say that because the Hellenic myths fall on deaf ears in the land of Judea. And that's when Socrates says, well, that's a good point, because Plato gave only one sentence to describe this spiritual practice of dying. He left that teaching without explaining how one must gather together the soul from the body when it is separating outside of the body. Is it a gradual process or attained instantaneously? In missing that key factor, the understanding of this spiritual practice was left undeveloped. For if the attainment is only seen altogether and at once, then all the processes may lead to it, but it is far different from it, just as understanding is different from true knowledge. It might be a complete different shift or a jump, instantaneous all at once. Those who are brought to Hellenic thought, who brought Hellenic thought to other traditions, but ignored this practice of dying, ignored the essential practice of what it means to be a true philosopher. That's another time he said deaf. So let's do a word search for deaf. Deaf ears, deaf ears. There's one later we haven't got to yet. And he also says deaf ears earlier by saying, again, another, it's myths. So there's a theme. So on page 57, he says different. Let's read it. You are part of a tradition, Socrates, says Jesus, that has been crafted over hundreds of years, if not thousands, into a rational-seeking culture. You Hellenes are rare among cultures. Yeah, no shit. We're just talking about that. Here among the Abrahamics, the struggle is different. We have a different origin. Different myths guide our people. Surely we know that the many out there seek only to be entertained and not taught. Well, that's why we have sound drops.
The more holes, the better.
Is this John?
See?
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
See? Entertaining stuff, at least for me. You people have your great mysteries like the Panathenea. For our part, we, children of Judea, what was it? Children of Abraham, we have our crying wall and a temple with law overriding everything. We don't seek to understand these things you regard as sacred, nor do you ours. At best, we can stand in awe of what we dimly perceive, yet recognize as wondrous. You reach for the profound principles in your talk, Socrates, but that would fall on deaf ears here among the children of Abraham. The real question is what a teacher is, and is there a need for only one teacher for man's spiritual quest? With belief, we don't have this issue, because we don't learn anything. But who would dare say that belief can stand alone? Socrates goes on to say the whole of a man is involved in this quest. It's not merely a part. It's not just for the Greeks. It's for all of us. The problem with belief systems is they do not stand alone. I mean that if one has a belief or faith in something, then one needs an accompanying feeling or state of mind that attends it so you feel secure in your belief. Sacrifice something you love. Kill a non-believer. Go on a crusade. Struggle to convert someone. Feel something else and link that feeling to the belief so that you know you believe. Understanding, knowing, and insight systems stand apart from such efforts to feel certain over what you've reached. Understanding has its own state of mind, and it is known for what it is. And those who seek to gain the certainty of knowing through understanding seek the state of knowledge in that transcendent arena of being. So it's always going to be incomplete for believers, and they are always restless in their belief. However, true knowledge in that which is an unchanging is that which is at unchanging permanent state. So this is the issue. Believers have to compensate for the state of being of understanding and the experience of bliss accompanying knowledge to feel secure, because belief doesn't have a state of being or feeling. And because you can't make things or help people with belief, usually the feeling taken as knowing is sadism. The feeling of, I've just hurt someone or killed someone or kicked over someone's sandcastle. Look at that person trying to use words with integrity to have a conversation. I'm going to win by being a jackass. Yes, but words don't mean anything. But how about I'm trolling? How about that? How about L for you? How about I'm a nihilist and I don't think words have meaning? So that's the issue. If they compensate for that feeling of crushing or hurting people or being a thug, bully, or a sadist, a barbarian and savage, if they're addicted to that, yes. The quest to actually understanding the nature of reality, your own mind, the principles of what it means to be a good noodle, and experiencing it as a feeling, as a way of being of understanding, and as a feeling state of knowledge, yes, it's going to fall on deaf ears. So that's the significance of belief. Not only are you staying afraid of understanding mind and self, and you have an addiction to a distorted image of what it means to be a clever person, to what it means to be knowing, sadism, and what the self is, I'm a this or a that. But then when someone comes along with a kick-ass mythology, deaf ears. Why would I listen? I like pretending to know everything and hurting people who are not Jews, who are not Christians, who are not Mormons, or whatever the fuck. So, 3 times we've come across the word deaf ears, all relating to mythology. We have another time. Yes, okay, so that was page 57, 97, and 117. Oh, 3 sevens. So those are the 3 times we've come across the expression falling on deaf ears for the children of Abraham or the lands of Judea, all relating to myths. And I'm going to be cheeky and skip ahead to the other one. There's one more that comes on page, it's not a 7, 190. The anti-chorus, the haters. Oh, wait. No, the haters are the chorus. The anti-chorus will say, we're going to skip ahead a little bit just to be cheeky. So the chorus comes in with their haterade saying, okay, this is like 80 pages away. They need a perfect language. Okay, let's bring in the chorus. They need a perfect language to tell their lies. Tie that up with this talk about fantasy and you have another mess. You say cultivate fantasy to be a philosopher. What nonsense. No philosopher has said anything worthwhile because words can't carry meaning any more than a pig can whistle or meatballs bounce. So there's a, look at me, I'm clever, I'm going to win this argument by saying words don't, Charlie Kirk's legacy. Words don't have meaning. But what if I say it means this? Words don't have meaning. But the anti-chorus comes in and says, to clap back with some facts, you scream out loud as long as you want, and you can scream as loud as long as you want, and it will change nothing. Why not try reviewing your fantasy and see if they have some connections with the problems you're facing in your everyday world? I thought you would at least mention the discussion on that transfiguration as the most brilliant light of being, but not so. Then the talk about God being beyond all predicates fell on deaf ears, didn't it? Why not wake up for a few minutes and try some of these practices that they have been describing? Put aside your hostility and give your mind a chance to see itself. We're not there yet, but it sounds like we're going to end up talking about a method to link our random thoughts and fantasies that distract us with our problems to gain insight into removing our problems. And also, they go on to talk about the God, or the one self, or the good self, being beyond all predicates or descriptions, which we were just talking about. But also, that transfiguration experience that Jesus supposedly had would have been the brilliant light experience. So we do get a practice of addressing our problems. We do get a deeper understanding of that which is beyond all predicates. And a way of understanding our fantasies that falls on deaf ears. So, a little teaser of what's ahead. But right now, we are at the language of Hellenic myths to talk about those principles that we need to understand to pave the way for the experience, and address those false limiting beliefs. Fall on deaf ears of believers. But part of the job of this, because it's not for a part, it's for the whole of everyone, is to bring others into your way of being and reasoning. It's a formidable task that we set for ourselves. And as formidable as it is, we are going to continue to do our best to do so. And as you do so, as you do your best to create your own mythologies and to share them with your fellow man, please share your experiences. Join along on Twitch or on YouTube. You can join the Discord. Share your ups and downs. How well did you go in finding someone to talk to about the dialectic? Someone with a good heart and good head, maybe. And if you do create your own works of mythology, share them with us in the Discord so you can benefit all of us. And it is a formidable task, but what can we do? Give up? I don't think that's an option on the table. We will continue to do our best and reflect on our efforts as we go to maybe get insights about our problems that block us, and maybe insights into our states of being and insights that we get if we have successes. Why not? It's the best game of in town, and you're all wizards, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry. Harry, Harry, Harry.
You're all wizards, Harry, and this is our quest of man. That's the quest song. Sound. You get it. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for our chatters. And thank you for all the wonderful fun emojis. We have fun here. And I will see you in the next one.